A poor nurse took care of his mom when no one else did. Now the millionaire never leaves her. Before we start the story, leave a comment below telling us which city you're watching from, subscribe our channel, and enjoy the story. Ellie Carter pedaled her rickety old bike along the Monterey coast, sweat dripping under the April sun. The ocean breeze whipped her hair into a mess, but she muttered to herself, "Taking care of a rich, cranky old lady ought to pay more than this, right, God?" Ahead loomed Dorothy Monroe's mansion, a fancy white sprawl perched on a cliff, overlooking the shimmering Pacific. Ellie stopped, panting, and thought, a place this nice with no one to sweep the leaves? Bet the old gal's pretty lonely. She knocked, clutching her worn medical bag. The door swung open, revealing Dorothy in a silk robe, silver hair pinned tight, eyes sharp enough to freeze the ocean. "Who are you?" she snapped, sounding like a cop grilling a suspect. Ellie flashed a big grin. "I'm Ellie, your new nurse. Don't worry, I'm not selling insurance or swiping your roses." Dorothy huffed, turned, and marched inside, leaving Ellie mid-greeting, blinking at the empty doorway. Inside, the mansion looked like a magazine cover, stunning but hollow. Old family photos hung on the walls, coated in a thin layer of dust, forgotten relics. Ellie set her bag down, glancing at Dorothy, who sat stiffly in an armchair. "You're just hired help," Dorothy said, not bothering to look up. "Don't act like you care." Ellie shrugged, quipping, "Fine, think of me as the pizza delivery gal. Just eat your pizza meds, okay? Don't make me call 911 because you skipped lunch." A few hundred miles away in a swanky San Francisco penthouse, Julian Monroe hammered away at his laptop. Dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, hair slicked back like a textbook tech CEO, his eyes were vacant. His phone buzzed. His assistant, "Your mom fired another nurse." Julian sighed, cutting in, "Send more money." "I'm swamped." He hung up, glancing at the lone photo on his desk, an old shot of him and his mom from before he'd cut ties after his dad's death. "She chose to live like that," he mumbled, diving back into work, as if it could fill the hole inside. Back in Monterey, Ellie didn't flinch at Dorothy's icy vibe. She dragged a chair over and plopped down, launching into a story. "You know, when I was a kid, I delivered papers to buy milk. Got chased by a dog once, but still made it on time. Pretty gutsy, huh?" Dorothy flicked her a glance. No smile, but her lips twitched, the first crack in her steely wall. By her third day on the job, Ellie Carter was done letting Dorothy Monroe win the silent treatment game. She showed up with a handful of wildflowers plucked along the Monterey coast. Bright yellow daisies and a few sprigs of pale lavender. "Your house is gorgeous but needs some color," Ellie said, popping them into an old glass vase she dug out of the kitchen. Dorothy glanced over, her voice still frosty. "You think a few cheap flowers will cheer me up?" Ellie grinned. "Nah, but at least they won't bug you for a thank you." Bit by bit, Ellie chipped away at Dorothy's icy shell. She shared stories of her trailer park childhood, how she'd pick wildflowers to sell for milk money for her little brother. "Once made $2 and thought I'd hit the jackpot," she chuckled, peeling an apple for Dorothy. The old lady stayed quiet, but her trembling hands stopped shoving the food tray away. One afternoon, while Ellie dusted the family photos, Dorothy spoke up out of nowhere. "My husband loved wildflowers too. Said they were pretty 'cause no one fussed over them." Ellie turned, surprised. "Sounds like he and I would have gotten along. Both into stuff nobody notices." That night, Dorothy couldn't sleep, staring out at the waves crashing against the rocks. Ellie stayed past her shift, sitting beside her, humming Sweet Caroline, an old folk tune her mom taught her. Her voice was rough, a little off-key, but warm, like a summer sea breeze. Dorothy closed her eyes, then softly joined in, her frail voice carrying a flicker of feeling. When the song ended, she cracked a tiny smile, her first as far as Ellie could tell. "You're an awful singer," she said, but her eyes weren't so lonely anymore. The next morning, Julian called, irritation crackling through the speaker. "Mom, how's the new nurse? She quit yet?" Dorothy hesitated, then said, "She's different. Stayed all night when I couldn't sleep." Julian paused, then snapped, "Don't let her take advantage. I'll send more cash." He hung up, but her words stuck with him. He opened his laptop, poked around for info on the care agency, then stopped. Different, huh? He muttered. But his fingers typed Ellie Carter into the search bar anyway, even though all he had was the name his mom dropped. Back in Monterey, Ellie found an old album in Dorothy's cabinet. Pictures of a younger Dorothy beside a flower bed in a small shop, next to a beaming man, likely her husband. You were stunning, Ellie said, handing it over. Dorothy touched the photo, her voice catching. Julian thinks I didn't do enough for his dad when he got sick. He left after the funeral, never forgave me. Ellie rested a hand on her shoulder, gentle. I don't know his side, but I know you deserve love. Dorothy didn't reply, but for once, she didn't pull away. One quiet weekend morning, the hum of a Tesla Model S shattered Monterey's peace as it rolled up to Dorothy's mansion. Julian Monroe stepped out, gray suit hugging his frame, sunglasses hiding his sharp eyes. He'd shown up unannounced, laptop in hand, like he planned to fix the mom issue in 15 minutes and bounce. But when he pushed the door open, he froze. Ellie was kneeling on the small front lawn, hands caked in dirt, planting a patch of wildflowers along the path. The sea breeze tousled her hair, but she muttered to herself, if these little blooms make it, Dorothy's got to give me some credit. Julian frowned, striding over, his tone all business. What are you doing to my mom's property? Ellie jolted, looking up, still gripping her tiny trowel. She sized him up, handsome in that rich movie guy way, then shot back, cool as a cucumber, planting flowers. What, you think I'm digging for gold? Julian's lip twitched, ready to fire back, but just then Ellie stood, grabbing the hose she'd turned on to water the plants. A cold jet blasted straight into his chest, soaking his pricey white shirt. Oh, shoot! Ellie yelped, fumbling to shut it off, but the damage was done. Julian stood there, water dripping from his chin, his face shifting from annoyed to dumbfounded. Ellie cracked up, apologizing through giggles. I'm so sorry, honest, but you look like you just lost a water fight at the county fair. Julian yanked off his sunglasses, staring her down, silent. Ellie, flustered, fished a hand towel from her pocket and thrust it at him. Here, dry off. Don't let your mom think I'm picking on you. He took it, but his eyes stayed locked on her, not irritated now, more like he was trying to figure her out. Something in her goofy grin threw him off, though he'd never admit it. Dorothy appeared at the door, leaning on her cane, voice dry as dust. Julian, why are you wet like a drowned rat? He muttered. Ask your nurse. Ellie shrugged, grinning wide. I'm innocent, ma'am. He walked right into the hose. Dorothy huffed, but a rare glint of amusement flickered in her eyes. Seeing her son this rattled was a first. Inside, Julian sank onto the sofa, shirt still damp, watching Ellie quietly. She brewed coffee for Dorothy, softly humming Sweet Caroline, the tune he'd once caught faintly over a call from his mom. So you're the one who's been, he started, trailing off, unsure what to say next. Julian decided to stick around Monterey for a few days, claiming he needed to check on the caregiver. But really, he couldn't stop thinking about the oddball nurse who'd hosed him down. The next morning, he sat in the living room with his laptop, pretending to work, though his eyes kept drifting to the window. Ellie was outside, wrestling with a leaky pipe near her wildflower patch. In a faded tee, wrench in hand, she grumbled, If this pipe doesn't cooperate, I'm naming it Julian. Stubborn as hell. He caught the jab through the open window, his lip twitching, but he forced his focus back to the screen, muttering, She's not worth noticing. Except he couldn't help it. At noon, Ellie brought Dorothy a tray of coffee, not cheap instant stuff, but the old-school drip kind his mom used to make when she ran her flower shop. Dorothy took a sip, her eyes lighting up. Where'd you learn this? Ellie grinned. I poked around Monterey's old haunts, got the recipe from a cafe owner. Glad you like it. From the sofa, Julian watched quietly, his typing slowing. He remembered his mom brewing that same coffee for his dad every morning, memories he'd buried long ago. That night, he caught Ellie singing Dorothy to sleep. She sat by the bed, her raspy voice humming, Sweet Caroline, gently stroking Dorothy's hair. Dorothy's eyes closed, her breathing steady, looking more at peace than ever. Julian lingered outside the door, not stepping in, but his heart beat faster than usual. When Ellie emerged, he bumped into her. What are you doing lurking like a thief? She teased, clutching her chest in mock shock. Julian fumbled. Just checking. Ellie shrugged. Check's done. Hand me a towel. My hands are wet. He pulled one from his suit pocket, their fingers brushing briefly, and both froze for a split second. The next day, Julian noticed Ellie walking home, 5 miles under the Monterey sun, since her bike was busted. He slipped $50 into her bag on the sly, but the next morning she returned it with a note. I don't take handouts, but thanks for worrying. Staring at the paper, Julian felt annoyed, yet intrigued. He drove to a little seaside cafe, tried brewing that classic coffee Ellie's way, and made a mess, splashing it all over his shirt. Ellie happened by, saw the disaster, and laughed. A CEO this clumsy? Who'd hire you? Julian flushed, mumbling. I'm not clumsy, just out of practice. She winked. Get practicing then. I don't teach for free. Driving back, Julian wondered, who is this woman throwing me off like this? He didn't realize that from that moment, his assumptions about Ellie were starting to crack, little by little, like wildflowers pushing through stone. Things were settling into a cozy rhythm when a cold wind swept through Monterey, not from the ocean, but from a nasty rumor. That day, Chloe, an old college buddy of Julian's from San Francisco, drove down to see him. She'd had a crush on him back in the day, and when she spotted Ellie chatting warmly with Dorothy in the yard, jealousy flared in her eyes. On her way back, she posted on local social media. Heard Mrs. Monroe's leaving her fortune to some hard-working nurse she just met. Who knew kindness came with such a price tag? The post spread like wildfire, tagged with a blurry photo of Ellie planting flowers out front. Julian saw it late that night, hunched over in the mansion's living room. He gripped his phone, his gaze darkening. He'd started to believe Ellie was different, but old suspicions, that people always wanted a piece of his family, roared back. The next morning he confronted her the second she walked in, still clutching a fresh bundle of wildflowers. You think a few flowers and a smile can worm your way into my family? He asked, voice hard as stone. Ellie froze, the flowers slipping to the floor. What are you talking about? She said, trying to stay calm, but his glare cut her deep. I saw it all, Julian pressed, shoving the phone at her with the post. You're good at playing the part. Mom's lonely, easy to fool. But I'm not. Ellie trembled, not from fear but hurt. She met his eyes, voice breaking. I don't want your money or your mom's. I'm here because she needs me. Something you've never bothered with. She turned and walked out, leaving the scattered flowers behind. Julian stood there, not chasing her, but his chest felt like it was caving in. Dorothy overheard it all from the next room and shuffled out on her cane, face flushed with anger. What did you just do, Julian? She snapped, voice quivering. Ellie stayed up all night when I had a fever, wiping my brow, while you couldn't be bothered to call. And now you run her off over some garbage rumor? Julian opened his mouth to argue, but she barreled on. You let your baggage blind you, like when you blame me for your dad. Ellie's the only one who's cared without wanting a damn thing. She jabbed a finger at his chest. You just lost her, and me, again. That night, Julian couldn't sleep. He dug through his mom's cabinet and found a dusty old journal. Inside, Dorothy had written about the days after his dad died. Julian thinks I didn't love his father, but I did all I could. Now he's left me, and I just hope he learns kindness doesn't need a reason. More recently, Ellie's like me when I was young, believing in good even when life's unfair. She reminds me how strong I used to be. Julian closed it, hands shaking. He'd screwed up, not just with Ellie, but with his mom too. The next morning, he drove to the care center where Ellie worked, heart pounding. She was there, packing medical supplies, eyes red but face set hard. We need to talk, he said, pleading. Ellie didn't turn, just replied icily, send the job bill by email. I'm not seeing you. She walked off, leaving Julian in the yard, feeling for the first time truly empty-handed. Julian wasn't ready to throw in the towel. After Ellie walked away cold as ice, he spent the night wrestling with his thoughts, his mom's journal still in hand. He realized he didn't just owe Ellie an apology, he owed her and his family a real shot at making things right. The next morning, he drove back to the Monterey Care Center, but this time, he wasn't just there to talk. He had a plan, a mix of CEO swagger and endearing clumsiness only he could pull off. At the center, Ellie was scrubbing medical tools in the backyard, trying to bury yesterday's mess in her work. Then out of nowhere, soft jazz floated from the outdoor speakers. Sweet Caroline, the song she'd sung for Dorothy. Frowning, she turned and froze. Julian stood in the yard, surrounded by a makeshift wildflower garden of LED lights and fake flowers he'd grabbed from a local shop. He wore a plain shirt, holding a real bouquet of wildflowers, slightly wilted from his nervous grip. "What are you doing?" Ellie asked, half stunned, half skeptical. Julian took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I suck at arranging flowers, brewing coffee, and obviously apologizing. But I know I can't lose the person who saved my mom and me." Ellie crossed her arms, eyebrow raised. "Saved you? Pretty sure you drenched yourself with that hose." Julian laughed, a real easy laugh she'd never seen before. "Fair point," he said, "but you saved me from living with a cold head and an empty heart. I was wrong to buy into that rumor. Wrong not to trust you." He held out the flowers, so clumsy a few petals hit the ground. "I rented this yard, threw together this light show, not to flex cash, but to show you I'm serious." Ellie eyed him, then the glowing garden under Monterey's afternoon sun, her lip twitching. "How much did this cost?" she teased. "More than my nurse paycheck for a year?" Julian scratched his head. "Maybe. Worth it, though, if you'll give me a shot." Ellie went quiet, her gaze softening. She stepped forward, took the bouquet, and sniffed it lightly. "They're wilted, but I like wildflowers. They're real." Then she looked up, smiling. "You don't have to be perfect, just real." Julian seized the moment, grabbing her hand. "So, can I learn to be real with you?" Before she could answer, he leaned in and kissed her, gentle but firm, under the flickering LEDs and distant waves. A few of Ellie's coworkers clapped and hollered, "Hollywood moment much?" Ellie blushed, shoving him back but still grinning. "You owe me a fresh bouquet." As they left the yard hand in hand, Julian whispered, "I'll learn to arrange flowers, even if I burn Mom's kitchen down." Ellie winked. "I'll believe it when I see it, Mr. CEO." A year had passed since that LED-lit kiss at the care center. Monterey still dazzled like a postcard, with golden sun and wildflowers lining the coastal pass. Ellie no longer pedaled her beat-up bike. She now stood beside a shiny white mobile medical van, emblazoned with free senior care along its side. Julian funded it all, from the idea to the last bolt, though he quipped, "I'm investing in you, but don't make me drive it. I'm only good at burning kitchens." Ellie laughed hard. "Don't worry, I wouldn't let you near the steering wheel." They'd moved into Dorothy's cliffside mansion together. Dorothy had bounced back after a stroke, thanks to Ellie's care and Julian's slow mending of their bond. The house wasn't empty anymore. Laughter echoed often, especially when Dorothy teased her son. One afternoon, as Julian brought in a tray of decently brewed coffee, she winked at Ellie. "You snagged him, and I'm the one who lucked out. I used to think he'd marry that laptop." Julian flushed, muttering, "Mom, if Ellie hasn't ditched me over your jabs, I'm golden." The real surprise hit one summer night. On the balcony watching moonlit waves, Ellie grabbed Julian's hand, pressed it to her belly, and gave a sly smile. "Guess who's joining the family?" Julian blinked, then his eyes lit up. You're serious?" She nodded, grinning. "Yup, but you've got to promise not to burn the house down baking for the kid." He jumped up, hugging her so tight he hollered, loud enough for Dorothy inside to yell, "What's all that racket?" Next morning, Julian bolted to a Monterey bookstore, hauling back a stack of books. How to Be a Dad, 101 Things Dads Need to Know, even Surviving Diaper Duty. Ellie caught him in the living room, buried in pages, hair a mess, glasses sliding down his nose. She cracked up. "You look like you're cramming for finals." He looked up, frantic. "I've got to study, Ellie. I don't want our kids stuck with a dad who only brews bad coffee." She plopped beside him, kissing his cheek. "You'll do fine, even if the kid likes wildflowers more than coffee." The final scene found their little family on Monterey's beach. Julian held a tray of apple pie, edges charred as usual, while Ellie rubbed her belly, whispering to their unborn baby, "Your dad's a klutz, but he loves your tons." Dorothy stood nearby, leaning on her cane, chuckling. "If my grandkid takes after him, we're in trouble." Julian faked a scowl, but his eyes glowed with joy. Wildflowers lined the path, a quiet testament to the love and kindness that had bound them together, breaking through every barrier. What did you think of Ellie and Julian's story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear how their journey from wildflowers to family hit you. On a scale from 0 to 10, what rating would you give this tale of love, coffee mishaps, and second chances? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. And while you're here, take a moment to check out more heartfelt tales. Just click right here at the end.